Hello, grade 9. How are you today? I hope you're doing fine. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about the digestive system, okay? So the digestive system is responsible for the absorption and transformation of food into nutrients the cell can use. So the food that we eat, we cannot use right away. So we need to transform this food in a way that the cells can absorb to use the nutrients. Because cells of humans organisms cannot use most food directly for energy. Food must be transformed in the digestive system before the organism uses it. The main function of the digestive system is to break down the food that we ingest into small molecules, that these small molecules will be able to be absorbed by the cells of the body. And also eliminates what is not used or what was not digested from the body in the form of a solid waste. So first let's look at the anatomy. The anatomy of the digestive system is divided in two parts. First is the digestive tract and the other one is the digestive glands. So the digestive system has two main parts, digestive tract and digestive glands. The digestive tract is a long twisting tube that starts from the mouth and goes until the anus. This main function is to move the substance, the food and the substance during digestion. So the main function is to move, to coordinate the movement of the substance along all the digestive tract. And the digestive glands are glands that produce chemical secretions, okay, that helps in the digestion. These chemical secretions break down the food into smaller substance. Okay, so the digestive tract just move the food, and the digestive glands produce the secretions, the chemical secretions that break down this food into a smaller substance. Take a look a little closer. The digestive tract, it's composed by the mouth, so the mouth here, the pharynx, so this part here, the esophagus, so this long tube here, the esophagus, the stomach, so this organ here, the small intestine, so that's the small intestine that is inside, and the large intestine that's outside. So these are the main organs of the digestive tract. For digestive glands, I'm going to change the color, is first the salivary glands here on the mouth. The gastric glands are inside the stomach, so inside the stomach we have these gastric glands. The liver here is a separate gland. The pancreas here. And the intestinal glands. So just like in the stomach we have the gastric glands, in the intestine we have the intestinal glands that also secrete substance. How is the digestion of food? This is a little complicated process, but that involves the following functions. So 4 main functions. The ingestion and propulsion. Propulsion is like the movement, okay? Ingestion is when we eat. Ingestion and propulsion of food along the digestive tract. The digestion itself is when we break this food. The absorption of nutrients, so after I break down this food, I absorb the nutrients. And the elimination of fecal matter, so the elimination of any nutrient, any substance that we are not going to use. So let's take a look at each of them. Ingestion and propulsion of food. Ingestion is the act of taking substance into the body. It's when we eat, okay, through the mouth. So ingestion is like when you eat. There are 2 mechanisms that move the substance along the digestive tract. The deglutition or swallowing. So after you eat, you swallow. The epiglottis close the trachea and the uvula close the nasal cavity, allowing food to travel to the esophagus without getting into the respiratory tract. What does that mean? When you eat the food, if you don't close the trachea, the food can go to your lungs, so it's not good. Okay, so what happens? The epiglottis, so the epiglottis closes the trachea, and the uvula closes the nasal cavity. Okay, so here you will be able to see the uvula, so uvula is here. Okay, the uvula closes the nasal cavity, so when you swallow, you don't get air. Okay, so it's just for a moment, you don't get any air inside. And the epiglottis here, as you can see in the animation, so here the epiglottis close, and it avoids the food to go to the trachea, because if the food goes to the trachea, it can go to the lungs and you can be asphyxiated. Okay, that happens when you asphyxiate. So when some food go to the trachea, you cough a lot to allow this food to go out. Okay, so this is the protection for your food to not go to your lungs. And peristalsis is a muscular contraction of the esophagus, stomach, and small intestine and large intestine that propels substance through the digestive tract. So peristalsis is the muscular contraction. So the muscles contract both in esophagus, stomach, and small intestine and large intestine to help the food to move down. Okay, to all the digestive tract. So here the muscles contractions makes the food to move down through all the digestive tract. So here there is an animation. So as the muscles contracts, the food moves, okay, through the esophagus, through stomach, and all the intestine as well. So this is peristalsis movement. Now, how do I digest? So after I swallow my food, how do I just digest? I have two types of transformation of food into nutrients that we perform. One is mechanical and the other one is chemical. The mechanical is the transformation of food into nutrients by chewing and churning. Okay, I'm gonna talk about this in a moment. And chemical is breaking down the complex molecule into simpler molecules. So mechanical is just break, okay, you just break the food in small pieces. The chemical is more, you break even more. You break the complex molecule into simpler molecule. Gonna talk in a moment. And this is made by the digestive glands. We have 5 digestive glands: the salivary, intestinal, gastric, pancreas, and liver. So we're going to talk about each of them now. So for mechanical transformation, we do chewing. It's like the process of crushing and grinding the food with your teeth and the muscles of your mouth. Okay, so it's usually this chewing is when you are breaking the food into small pieces. And churning is when your muscles contract, and the contraction of the muscles mix the food with the secretions from the digestive glands. Okay, so these two are mechanical because it doesn't involve any chemical. So chewing is the movement of your teeth and muscles of your mouth, and churning is the movement, the contraction of the muscles of the stomach and the intestine that helps the food to mix with the secretions that are secreted by the digestive glands. Okay. Now for chemical transformation. Chemical transformation is the digestive glands and the secretions. So we have 5. The salivary glands that is in your mouth. It secretes saliva and is located in your mouth. And what is his target? His target is to break down the carbohydrates. Okay, so we saw in the other lectures what was carbohydrates. So the saliva breaks down these carbohydrates. The gastric secretes gastric juice that is located in the stomach. And the main target is the protein. So when you eat some meat, the digestion of meat starts in the stomach because of the gastric juice. The intestinal, we have the intestinal juice in the small intestine that breaks almost everything: proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. In pancreas, it secretes the pancreatic juice in small intestine. So the pancreas is a separate gland, but the pancreatic juice is secreted into the small intestine and also targets protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And finally, the liver, it secretes the bile and also secretes the bile in the small intestine and breaks down basically fats. Okay, so all these glands works together, and pancreas and liver, they secrete into the small intestine. Okay, so no food goes inside the pancreas or the liver. They just secrete the pancreatic juice and the bile into the small intestine. Chemical transformation. What's chemical transformation? Is when we take the nutrients, when you transform the food into nutrients that the body can absorb, okay, after being broken down into their molecular components. So here, for example, for the proteins. Proteins are big molecules that need to be broken down for us to absorb. They are broken down into amino acids. These amino acids are much smaller, and they are small portions of protein. And then when we have just amino acids, my cells can take it and use it. When I just have proteins, my cells cannot use. The same happens for carbohydrates, but the small portions, the small molecules of carbohydrates, we call glucose. It's basically sugar, okay? The small molecules of sugar. We saw in the other lecture, monosaccharides, disaccharides, they are all sugar. So when we break down carbohydrates, we are creating small molecules of sugar that we can absorb. And fats, they also are breaking down, and the two main components are glycerol and fatty acids. Okay, so when we break down the fats into glycerol and fatty acids, I can absorb these nutrients. So what's absorption? Absorption is the passage of nutrients from the digestive tract into the blood or lymph. Okay, so when I take the nutrients and I put in my blood to be used. Most food absorption occurs in the small intestine. So in the small intestine is when the most part of the nutrients are being absorbed. In the small intestine, we have food that we call villi. What's that? These villi are structures that increase the surface area available for the absorption of nutrients and houses blood and lymphatic vessels through which nutrients flow into the body. So here a diagram. So here I can see like a small intestine inside, and inside the small intestine we can see all these structures that we call villus or villi. Each of them here, as being bigger here, you can see they have blood and lymphatic vessels. Because of this format, they increase the surface area, so more nutrients can be absorbed. That's why in the small intestine is when happens the most absorption. So I'm going to show you here. So here is just the cells. So the green part here are nutrients. They are coming into this villi. They are being absorbed, and they are going into the blood that is running here. Okay, so the small nutrients pass through the cells of the small intestine and goes into the blood where they are taken and transported. And here you can see the movement, okay, of all these villi. It's like a lot of villi movement increase the area of absorption. That's why we can absorb a lot of nutrients in the small intestine. Now the last part, the elimination of fecal matter. So because most food absorption occurs in the small intestine, the digestive residue that enters the large intestine contains very little nutrients. So all the absorption, not all, most of it occurs in the small intestine. So the residue that lasts, that goes to the large intestine, contains very little nutrient matter, just nutrients that we don't need much. So here is the diagram. So the food arrives in the large intestine, that is this big one outside, in liquid form. That's what happens. The water is absorbed here in the large intestine. And then by the time the residue has reached the rectum, so here this part here, at the large intestine, there is very, very little water left. That's why your feces are not so liquid. If it's liquid, it's because you have a problem, okay, and then you need to check to solve it. So from the rectum, the feces are expelled through the anus. Okay, so that's why when you have diarrhea, for example, you feel sick because you are not absorbing the water properly. Okay, so it's really important, and that's why also it's important to be hydrated, because you eliminate water and you can be dehydrated. Okay, so this is the elimination of fecal matter. Now let's take a look on the overall process. Start from the mouth, where you ingest the food and where you have the salivary glands. So mouth and pharynx. What happens here? First, the ingestion of food, then the chewing and swallowing of food, then the breakdown of the carbohydrates. So I'm going to emphasize here. So here, breaks down the carbohydrates by saliva. After, it goes through the esophagus. The esophagus is this long tube that allows the movement of peristalsis into the stomach. So moves the food from the mouth into the stomach by the peristalsis movement. After it reaches the stomach, and what happens? Happens the churning, remember the muscles contraction, and mixing of food with the secretions. Here in the stomach, we break down basically proteins by the gastric juice. Okay, so in stomach, we break down the proteins by gastric juice. And occurs the movement of food mixture by peristalsis. So peristalsis also continue from the esophagus to the stomach and also in the intestine, okay? So the peristalsis movement in the stomach moves the food from the stomach to the small intestine. And then in the small intestine, we also have the churning and mixing of food. So here you can see the pancreas and the liver. They are secreting their substance, their secretion, into the small intestine, okay? So the food doesn't go inside the pancreas or the liver, but they are secreting the secretions here to help in the digestion. In the small intestine, there is the preparation of fats for the digestion by bile. The bile is the juice that is secreted by the liver. And here it happens the digestion of fats by the bile. Also break down fats, proteins, and carbohydrates by intestinal and pancreatic juice. So the intestinal and pancreatic juice, that pancreatic juice is secreted by the pancreas. They help to break down the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And here is when happens the most absorption of nutrients. And the proportion of residue mixture by peristalsis, so also the peristalsis happens here, that moves the residue to the large intestine. And then finally, when it reaches the large intestine, there is the absorption of water, and the proportion of residue by peristalsis toward anus. Then the feces will be eliminated. Okay, so mouth, ingestion, chewing, and breakdown of carbohydrates. Esophagus, just the movement of food by peristalsis. Stomach, churning and breaking down of protein by gastric juice and also peristalsis. Small intestine, churning also, and preparation of fats by digestion by bile, breaking down fats, proteins, and carbohydrates by the intestinal and pancreatic juice, absorption of most nutrients, and proportion of the nutrients to the large intestine. And in the large intestine, it happens the absorption of water and proportion of residue by peristalsis to anus to be eliminated. Okay guys, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed and thank you so much for watching.